That's a very hard act to follow, especially if we're talking about crowdfunding and crowdfunding dynamics. A lot of my time is spent consulting with other individual entrepreneurs or companies, and now actually literally nations, about how to create effective networks and how to get people to engage together. So what I've been studying for years is the intersection of how technology can either facilitate or get in the way of that. So the question that I have is how do you unite information with people trying to solve problems? So I have a roadmap of 14 ideas we're going to cover in 18 minutes. And hopefully in the end, this will all make sense. So let's start with the question. Questions are always more interesting than answers. The question is, how do you find the information that you need to work together to solve problems? Uniting around a cause without the right information does not ever make a difference. The problem that we have is that we live in a sea, a virtual torrent, a virtual tsunami of information, posts, blogs, updates, ideas, feeds. We are constantly struggling to keep up with the information which is barraging us. We live in a world of tweets and memes and ephemeral ideas and virality, where the very knowledge information we constantly seek literally exists in the cloud. We have never had as much access to information, and yet literally we've never been so disconnected on a relationship level from each other. Many of you think that technology is actually an enabling tool, which will allow us to connect, but most of my research is showing that in terms of coming up with effective solutions, the technology interferes with humans' ability to collaborate to solve problems together. So we're actually going to go back to a very interesting question. What is the nature of intelligence itself? Intelligence historically was a human being with a pen and a pencil and paper solving a discrete task and having their IQ measured and evaluated. We debated about whether intelligence was the ability to solve or demonstrate learning from text, or whether intelligence was practical problem solving, and then later we started thinking about intelligence as emotional intelligence and culturally embedded knowledge, but it was still defined as an individual and a discrete set of tasks, and it could be evaluated individually. I believe that the actual confluence of science and technology and information systems and social networking is actually forcing us to redefine the very nature of intelligence itself. And I'm going to propose today that we need to have a new framework for understanding the nature of what intelligence means in this new technology-enabled world that we exist within. We need intelligence that allows us to collaborate and unite to take action to solve problems, and that intelligence actually demands that we learn to unite with others to solve those challenges. There's been literally an explosion of information. The amount of data being created, the amount of information being created is doubling every 3 to 4 years. My little 2-year-old son, future information scientist, if I have my way, when he enters kindergarten at 3 years, and by the way, he's MIT class in 2034, I'm excited. The amount of information available to him when he enters kindergarten will have doubled. The amount of information being created in the universe is doubling every 3 to 4 years. It is literally, absolutely impossible for us to keep up with this information. So if we cannot keep up with the information, how do we determine what is meaningful, what is important? What bits of information do we capture? Knowledge is only information is only knowledge when you can apply it in a context. One of my intellectual heroes is Jerome Bruner, who most of you probably have never heard of. Interesting writer, very difficult and painful to read. But this is one of his tautological quips. A difference is only a difference if it makes a difference. Let's listen again closely to that. A difference is only a difference if it makes a difference. So what information or what differences in circumstances make a difference to you and your thoughts? What information, reports, insights, blogs, or merely intuition do you follow in making your decisions? What change in circumstances moves the needle for you? How do you know that a difference makes a difference? I'm going to argue that the answer is by relying upon the wisdom of crowds. I study crowdsourcing and crowdfunding and crowd dynamics, and I travel around the world working with organizations trying to convince them to get out of the way of crowds. Our U.S. government's done a phenomenal job of getting in the way of crowds the last couple of years. There's evidence that knowledge and actual wisdom is emerging from the interaction of crowds, and that part of the goal of our society is learning how to tap that knowledge. One of the best examples, of course, is Wikipedia, one of the first crowdsourced projects. But I'm actually arguing that crowdfunding demonstrates this emergent wisdom within crowds. I'll give you a couple of examples of that. The bogeyman of crowdfunding and crowdsourcing is a specter of fraud. The unfounded in data, but still pervasive belief that fraud is going to be rife in crowdfunding and crowdsourcing markets. So what does the data actually tell us? Australia has had crowdfunding for 7 years. The United Kingdom has had it for 5 years. Western Europe has been active for 2.5 years. During that period of time, this is in an investing sense of the word, not just Kickstarter, there have been tens of thousands of funding events spanning dozens of countries with billions of pounds and euros, and there's not been a single case of successful fraud. Billions of dollars, tens of thousands of transactions, dozens of countries, hundreds of technologies, and not a single case of fraud. Listen to that, Wall Street. That proves to me, and I believe the data speaks for itself, that there's an emergent wisdom within the crowd that we can tap. So I literally believe that the crowd, which I define as that network and web of relationships that we're both embedded in and part of, enables us and accelerates our ability to collect information. And the crowd actually sifts through that information for us. And if we learn to leverage the power of the crowd, we can discover new information. But most importantly, the new information is when changes and circumstances have occurred, it allows us to know that the difference is meaningful. So let's talk about a few things that get in the way of that. A lot of what I do is spend time talking to entrepreneurs and companies. The challenge that I see is that most people don't understand that knowledge is only knowledge and wisdom when it occurs in context. So to put that in a simpler way, people come to me with ideas or opportunities or things that they've thought about, but they don't have the big picture. They have a very limited view of what's happening. They get excited, and they sometimes spend tens of thousands of dollars or more on their money chasing an opportunity that they believe exists because they're not aware of the broader scope. And this is an artifact of the fact that there's so much happening that we can't ourselves be smart. You cannot be smart alone any longer. Intelligent action requires the ability to leverage a network of power of organizations and crowds and groups. So one of my maxims is, you're only as smart as the network that you can cultivate. Your ability to solve problems is limited by the networks you grow. I literally believe that human intelligence is shifting, and that the ability to solve problems and work collaboratively requires a new understanding of the boundaries of intelligence as a person. One of those, there's 3 basic maxims. One is your personal network is an extension of your intelligence. Your personal network defines the boundaries of your knowledge system, and effectively utilize your personal network becomes your filter for meaningful information. Your network becomes an extension of your mind. Your network becomes your source of gathering intelligence, and your network becomes the ability to define difference. So what gets in the way of the network functioning so well? On the slide I have Fox News meets Aristotle. So the challenges that we have is we are constantly inundated with information. How many of you remember the 1,000 emails a day club? I reached that goal. I literally have given up trying to keep up with the amount of data and information flowing to me. The challenge I also have is I'm working with Europe and Asia and Africa and the Middle East and 2 universities at the same time, different politics, and I literally get barraged by conflicting opinions, information, and ideas. There's a term, cognitive dissonance. That's the mental tax, the mental energy that we have to expend when trying to reconcile conflicting ideas and opinions. It's taxing, it's hard work. One of my insights is that the hyperpolarization of our media and our society is literally the effect of our brain trying to decrease the amount of thinking that we have to do. It's mentally easier to listen to a source that we always agree with than to have to expend the mental energy to think through complex problems or listen to different ideas. But if we spend our lives in these polarized siloed domains of information, such as the progressive on this side and Fox on this side, we're missing most of the information that's available to us. We also have empirical research that shows if you take two groups of polarized people with strong opinions and you put them in a room and ask them to collaborate to solve a problem, unfortunately what occurs is they emerge more polarized, more ardent, and more opposed than when they started. Unfortunately, communication with polarized people leads to hyperpolarization. It does not lead to unity. So how do we get around this? How do we get around the fact that most of the information coming to us is in channels and that most of the information coming to us is polarized? One example of that is search technology. Search technology does not give you the most relevant information. Search technology gives you the information that they believe you're the most interested in seeing, hyper-personalized media. So Google is behaving like Fox. They're giving you what they think you want to hear. And it's very difficult to get out of that, especially in the United States with our lack of privacy laws. There's an old Latin phrase, I like going back to the classics sometimes. Via media means the middle road. It's a theological and philosophical proposition that by avoiding extremes of opinion, we're more likely to discover the truth. This is an old idea. It actually started with Aristotle. Sort of gone out of favor lately. I believe that via media, the middle road, which leads to insight, which leads to access to information, which leads to power, which leads to knowledge, which leads to the ability to take action, is this. We must become superconnectors in our own networks. And what does that mean? You must avoid being polarized and put into silos that will cause people to be opposed to you. You must be open to conflicting ideas. If you agree with me that access to information and knowledge is more intelligent, then you also have to agree with me that having access to a diverse and far-ranging source of opinions and ideas makes you more intelligent and able to have more power and ability to have impact. Therefore, if you can be the bridge between the worlds, if you can position yourself in your organization as the flow of information between organizations, you have to do that. You have to be trusted and trustworthy and open-minded and open to dialogue with those with whom you might ardently disagree. Then you will have access to phenomenal flows of information. So the middle road today, the middle road, the Aristotelian idea in social networking is to not be polarizing. It is to not oppose. It is to be the bridge and the connector between differences of opinion. Very hard to do in today's world. I literally have my wife monitoring me to assume, with permission, on Facebook, to ensure that I don't post things that are going to offend different groups of people. Because I'm literally working with conservative Arabs in Saudi Arabia and with gay rights activists in San Francisco at the same time. So I cannot not be without an opinion, but I have to work very hard to be the bridge between those worlds, to bring people together. It's a very short talk, and I wanted to summarize by thinking of it this way. We cannot be smart alone. Collective action requires collective intelligence. Collective intelligence requires networks that function effectively. And networks that function effectively require humans that are open and receptive. Our children need to be taught that Google is not knowledge, that accessing information from humans will always be superior to technology, despite my working in a college of engineering. I don't believe that. Technology solves most problems. So my challenge to you, and this challenge to this community, is to open dialogue. There's wars between North Davis County and South Davis County, between Sandy and Salt Lake City, between the East Bench and the West Bench, and I could go on forever. In a superficially friendly society, we still don't have dialogue across 72nd South, let alone across opinions and barriers. So my challenge to you is to collaborate to solve problems, to take the middle road. Avoid those extremes of opinions and exchange ideas. And teach your children that Dale Carnegie was actually right. Make friends to influence people. Through connecting to the right people, you can solve any problem. Through connecting to the right people, you can access any information. Intelligent problem solving requires collective action. Uniting the political will without the right information does not solve anything. Unite networks unite knowledge, be connected, be smart, and then you can go do some good. Thank you.